And I thought that I would start off with a little reality because I know there's a lot of hype around AI. And so I actually worked with Fox Studios about 5 years ago. They had a AI horror movie called Morgan come out, and they wanted to do something with IBM Watson. They asked me if we could partner together. I wasn't so sure I wanted to do that, a horror movie about AI, but came back and proposed to them, what if we had Watson watch the movie and create a movie trailer? And they said that could be done. Yes. Watson watched it, created a movie trailer. We targeted a specific demographic of 13 to 29-year-olds. And despite the movie not being that good, it outperformed with that category. So one of my good friends, Ross Goodwin, said, if you can do that, could a machine write a film script? So he created an AI called Benjamin to see if that was possible. I'm going to play you a really short news clip to show you what happened.
All right, you can't tell me that.
Yeah, I was coming to that thing.
I don't want to be honest with you.
You don't have to be a doctor.
I'm not sure. I don't know what you're talking about.
Boy, I was a stranger, and
I just wanted to tell you that I was much better than he did. To stop him. I didn't want to hurt him. Sorry, I don't like him. I don't love it.
Wow.
So
The answer to helping reduce
Benjamin pulled it off, wrote an original film script. If you want to watch Sunspring, I think it's actually still posted to YouTube. But this always was about the question, could AI, could a machine create, could it imagine? And the answer is actually no. We can only do what we teach it to do. So if you're worried about the Terminator, don't be. The question became is how did Ross do this? And what we actually learned in looking at how to make this happen was that every movie ever made fits into one of 12 archetypes. And so if you teach the machine the 12 archetypes, a little about characters, a little about dialogue, it actually has the ability to write an original film script. So it's not rehashing old plot points, it's not rehashing old dialogue. It is actually creating something new, but it's not like imagining like a film that is a different type of mode or modality. And that's kind of the key when it comes to AI. We're used to machines following a software program, a set of instructions. So whatever paths we chart out, it goes down them to try and find something. AI doesn't work like that. It actually works like the human mind. It takes its body of knowledge, its experiences, and tries to find hidden patterns among it to draw those insights. That's able to do this in some cases better than we can because it can crunch millions upon millions of data points in nanoseconds. So it can take a lot more information in than we can. So it does this through machine learning. That basically means that, again, we don't program the machine. We give it something called ground truth. So rules on how to make decisions, give it a bunch of data, let it try and learn from it, and then we have human teachers. So we'll ask it questions, have it try and do things, and tell it it's right, it's wrong, it missed this, give it some coaching. So every time it does something new, it's like a 3-year-old kid, but it learns fast. And in just a matter of a few weeks, it'll be a PhD level. Second is the ability to understand natural language, which is hard for machines. Think about if I told you guys that I'm feeling blue because it's raining cats and dogs. Most of you probably know that Mule's saying he's sad because it's raining really hard. Imagine telling that to a computer. It's gonna be like Neil is somehow physically the color blue because small animals are falling from the sky. That doesn't really compute. So, not like Google, not like Siri. It's not a giant search engine trying to spit back something we already know. It's trying to draw context from the conversation. It's trying to infer things. It has the ability to see. It's trying to drive some meaning from body language as well. Which leads to the third part, which is that it actually is able to interact with people more naturally, like another person would. So think about like if I wanted to buy a bicycle, I would go to Google, I would type buy bicycle, get 50 bazillion web pages, search through them, maybe learn some more keywords, try those, maybe go to some Facebook fan pages. I go through a lot of work trying to figure out what bike to buy, right? If I had an AI system that knew about bikes, I could just go there and say, hey, I want to buy a bicycle. And you know what I would probably say? Neil, why do you want one? It's a fair question. Well, I want to get back in shape. Great. How often do you think you'll ride your bicycle? Probably 4 or 5 times a week, about an hour at a time. Great, Neil. And where would you ride your bike? Around my neighborhood. And then they would probably come back and say, okay, great. This is the bike you should get. It's like having a best friend that happens to know about bicycles, give you some insights and information. And I use best friend intentionally because while it's asking for more information to make an informed recommendation, it's also taking things it probably knows about me. So it's probably saying like, no, Neil doesn't really like to spend money on things. So he probably doesn't want an expensive bike. And while he says 4 or 5 times a week, he's kind of a busy guy. It's probably like once or twice a week. So taking those little clues like a best friend does. That's the way AI actually works. That's why AI can actually try and answer questions we don't know the answer to. So one thing I will say to everybody right now is that AI is not the future. It is very much the present. When I did the Jeopardy challenge for IBM Watson, that was over 10 years ago. And today, there's not a sector or industry that's not doing something with AI. From financial services to legal services to healthcare to education to sports to human resources, even wine. And not just helping you pair your wine with the food, but they're using AI robotic grape pickers now because they can go out and actually see a grape and they actually make the judgment. You know, if I let this sit in the vine for 2 more days, potency will increase. I'll auto tag it and come back 2 days later and grab it. That's the level of sophistication that we have right now. Now, interestingly enough, while it's the present, there's still a lot of opportunity because we as people are challenged in trying to find ways to use the technology. And it's kind of our own self limitation because we're used to computers being about automation, doing something faster, cheaper, less errors. We're neglecting the innovation, which is finding a way to do a process or a system better way to perform the work. So when I work with the global Fortune 500 companies, their first reaction is, can we automate this? Could AI help, all these things? They're not thinking about, is there actually a better way of doing some of these things? There often is. And I'll share some examples. But to kind of just reinforce what I mean by innovation, I thought I would talk about the movie camera. Try to pick examples everyone is familiar with. So I'm going to take you back in time to about 1878. And a guy named Leland Stanford, the guy that founded Stanford University, made a bet. And he said that when a horse gallops, all four hoofs can be off the ground. Well, to win the bet, he needed proof. And we didn't have smartphones back then or even like fast cameras. So he went to a scientist named Edward Moody and asked for help. So Edward thought about it and came up with an experiment. They went to a field, they set up 100 cameras, a person at each camera, and they were spaced out so that the cameras could go off in succession 1 second apart. And a horse galloped by, got a stack of 100 photos. They're going through it. Leland finds a photo where all four hoofs off the ground. He's like, yes, I win my bet, goes off to collect his money. Edward, however, is kind of just looking at the photos and going like, huh, when I flip through the photos, it's almost like I'm watching the horse run. I managed to create motion from still photography, invents the movie camera. So how is it that two guys trying to accomplish the same goal come up to such wildly different outcomes? Well, Leland was focused on winning his bet. So he's looking at that stack of 100 photos as kind of like individual data points. He was just trying to find that one data point that helps him out. It's kind of what we do with automation. Because Edward wasn't going to win any money out of this, he could actually look at all the data as an aggregate. And by looking at it together, he was able to glean this insight and wind up pioneering the whole film industry. That's innovation. These are the opportunities that we actually have with AI. So to show you what I mean by this, I'm going to play a video. It's embedded in the slide. It's short. There's not much audio, so don't worry about that. Take a look at what this guy is doing and watch what happens with that robotic arm.
You wanted to see?
We're not seeing anything.
Oh, you're not seeing anything?
No.
Oh no.
I was seeing.
You seen it?
Yes, yes.
Let me play it again.
We're seeing it. I see it.
I can
Okay.
see it too.
Okay.
I can see it.
I see it.
The hand is the mechanical hand is moving.
Yeah.
Great. So if you're wondering how this is happening,
Sure.
you may have heard of Elon Musk. He started a company called Neuralink, where they want to put chips inside your head and use AI to decode your brain waves. That's not what is happening here. What doctors and clinical researchers know is that if you're born without a limb or you lose a limb, the brain is still able to send a signal to the phantom stump. But it triggers a process in your body. So rather than trying to decode our brain waves, which we don't even fully understand, we realized we could actually track muscle and tendon motion. So if you look above his right elbow, you see a black band. It's an IoT sensor array. And so it's capturing that motion. The AI is actually decoding it and then translating that into the robotic arm. Thinks about a thumbs up. There's muscle motion for that. AI decodes that, makes the hand do a thumbs up. A lot simpler, a lot less surgery, or no surgery in this case, to restore mobility to people. This is innovation. This only happened because we had the right domain knowledge. So a lot of people always think like a lot of smart technologists, a lot of smart tech companies that will give us tools, tell us what we should be doing. The truth is the most successful AI ventures, the most successful AI tools, the most successful AI startups are all started by business people because they understand the core problems and how things work. A lot of smart technologists, how many of them understand the problems of a doctor, a lawyer, a marketer, financial analyst? So that's where the opportunity really lies. And it's also, we have to understand that machines think differently than we do. So I'll tell you another story, and hate to pick on Elon, but this wasn't really his fault. But there was a guy in his Tesla, he had an autopilot, and he was doing that because he's busy watching a Harry Potter movie. On the highway, a truck had wiped out, the truck bed was blocking the road. Now, you could see it from over 300 meters away, but because he was busy watching Harry Potter, never noticed it, and neither did his Tesla. Ran right through the truck bed, ripped the top of the car off. And everyone was like, well, how could this have happened? Well, the truck bed was kind of grayish white and it was a cloudy day. And so it blended into the background for the cameras. And back then, self-driving cars only used camera data because we drive with our eyes, right, with our vision. And that moment made us realize, wait a second, why do they have to drive with just camera data? They can process radar, LiDAR. That had happened, this accident never would have occurred. In fact, these cars could actually drive by auditory information. We know that you can hear the little kid about to run across the street before you see the little kid run across the street. And so now all these things, auditory, radar, LiDAR, IT sensors in the car and the road and traffic lights and other cars, these autonomous vehicles are processing over 1,000 data points per second in real time. So they know what's around that blind left turn before they make the blind left turn, which is why in my work with the United Nations, we no longer debate when we'll legalize self-driving vehicles. We actually debate when we'll ban human drivers, because we can't drive actually as effectively or safely as these machines can. It's the same thing actually with cooking. We did a little work with Bon Appetit, and we've learned that AI can actually create original food recipes, ingredient combinations we haven't thought of in 50,000 years of human history. And while we learn by kind of experimentation and see what other people do, the more effective way to cook is actually through chemistry. That's actually how we taught AI to cook. There's chemical combinations that create flavors, nutrients, aromas. And so it's actually can mix things together that we never considered, which is why now we have dishes like the Vietnamese apple kebab or the chocolate Austrian burrito. Same thing, that there's a lot going on with art, right? All these fields we think that AI wouldn't even apply. Well, we have AIs that are creating sculptures, that are creating paintings. Mio, a famous mime dancer who happens to have a PhD in computer science, created an AI dancer, and he taught the AI how to dance without ever showing it a human person dancing. And as a result, it does some very human-like dances, and it does some crazy dance moves no human could ever do. And now he actually does a duet with his AI dancer. So there's like every field out there is using the technology, even the oldest fields like agriculture. So today, I've been able to actually help Bangladesh farmers with limited resources actually improve crop yields by 40 to 50% using simple AI tools that don't even require a high-speed internet connection. With AI, they can take climate information, soil content, types of seeds, all these things, and even make recommendations like if you plant this seed 2 millimeters, these seeds 2 millimeters to the right, can actually improve crop yields while reducing 1/3 less topsoil usage and 10% less water. So we actually have the ability to create an abundance of food with limited resources now. Even legal services. We always think about policy, regulation, legislation, and there's a lot of obviously people think about automating legal operations, but there's a company actually right here in Southern California called Legalmation, started by 3 lawyers. And they wound up building kind of an AI associate lawyer that can respond to complaints. So someone comes in now, the AI will actually read the complaint, generate the court documents, the deposition questions, and the initial case strategy. What it would take an associate lawyer of about 3 years experience, 10 to 12 hours to do, their AI does in 2 minutes. We have noticed there's a chicken on this slide. That's by design. So one of their big clients is actually Walmart. And they had a case, the guy ironically was a dentist, where he bought a whole chicken, bit in the gizzard, chipped his tooth on a stone, sued Walmart for damages. Normally Walmart would just settle out of court to avoid the headache. I don't know how much they would pay. I would guess maybe $60,000 to $80,000. But now that they're using Legalmation AI, went through, what the AI came back with as a case strategy said, well, it's actually a material fact that when chickens eat, they eat stones, they get stored in the gizzard. By this guy buying a whole chicken and trying to eat the gizzard, he should have been aware of the risk and assumed the liability. That argument won Walmart the case. They didn't have to pay anything. And I asked several of the top managing partners of the top law firms, would your lawyers have figured this out? And they're like, well, not unless they were a chicken farmer now.
That's right.
Yeah. That's the power that we have. And the 2 biggest areas I want to share with you guys with AI right now, fastest growing, around psychographics and neurolinguistics. Psychographics is essentially being able to decode a person at the personality level. understand their opinions, their hobbies, political affiliation without even asking them for it. There's enough public information on people for AI to actually be able to do this. The other is actually neurolinguistics, which is the coding of language. So another company to help out called Cyrano AI, and these are the three founders of it, so I'm not sure anything that's a secret. They've actually figured out a way to decode language. And so now when you're interacting with somebody or you're wondering how you sell somebody or you engage them or you're talking to a child, whoever, their AI system can actually tell you how they learn, what they value, what things to focus on, and even what words to pick, like use the word supports instead of help. This slide you see right now is actually a report generated from their Zoom tool. So when the pandemic hit, they realized how do you build relationships and stay in touch with people is going to be more of a challenge in a virtual world. They found this AI to be a powerful bridge as a result. So you can see if you were in a meeting, how much you could learn about Dan and Ryan and how to actually communicate with them. So no secret, all these tools are being applied into digital marketing, especially the psychographics and neurolinguistics. And we've arrived at a point now where we know how to engage each person and speak their own language. We know what channels they prefer to use. We know what rewards to offer them so that we can maximize their interest each time, every time. And this is now getting applied also beyond marketing into financial services. So we're talking about advice on bank accounts, investment, retirement, saving for college, risk assessments, even fraud detection. It's also being used now in call centers to give coaching to people that are actually taking the call. Help them understand, if someone's being angry or frustrated, as well as actually rate their performance in real time. You actually will pop up little emoticons that show a smiley face, sad face, all this kind of stuff, so they get real feedback as they're interacting with the customer. And of course, it's being used for the world's biggest illness, at least before the pandemic, which was loneliness. So about 40% of people suffer from loneliness before the pandemic, and not meant to replace human relationships, but to give people a safe space and an outlet so they feel like they're connected to something, so they can build their confidence and actually engage. And this is the whole area of artificial empathy. So even though machines don't detect or don't feel emotions, I should say, we're really good at detecting them in people because you can process all the body language, the word choice, and they're not distracted, right? They got this laser-like attention on you. And the more interesting thing is we found that people that are using this, they're more honest because they feel like they're not being judged. So as a result, we're getting better data to actually help them. So I know I dumped a lot because of the short amount of time here. And I know you're probably thinking, a lot of this stuff sounds great, but I'm not a technologist. What am I going to do with all this stuff? That's the great thing is you don't need to be a technologist. You really just need to understand the AI capabilities. That's where it really lies. It's not about coding. There's very little coding involved. You need some training data, you do a little bit of experimenting, a little coding around you, user interface, always partner up for that. The real innovation and the real value you're going to drive through the tools or building something for one of your customers or clients is coming through with the knowledge of the problems that you have married with AI capabilities. So come in with a mindset, find a better way of doing something. What's the problem you want to tackle? Right, just like the Legalmation guys, you want to tackle probably complaints and the challenges with that, brought the domain expertise, that creates the opportunity. Once you have the opportunity, then you can partner up with the smart technologists who can help you understand what's feasible and what infrastructure you might need. Like you need high-speed internet or 5G, or you need a supercomputer, whatever it is. And that will lead you to actually a working solution. I don't want to give you guys the magic bullet here and say this is going to solve all your problems. There's obviously some challenges with AI. You got to have the data. That's the fuel. You can't learn without it. You need the human trainers. That's how it learns. And people always shortchange that, which is why they struggle trying to teach the AI. And we have to worry about bias in the SMEs and in our data, and more so the implicit bias. Because you think about like stuff like the UN, they really want to do AI robot judges. And we've been working on that. There's a lot of implicit bias in there, not just things like, racial bias and these types of things that we're aware of, but one of the things we've learned is one of the biggest influencers on a judge's decisions is how hungry they are. The hungrier they are, the more harsh they become. How do you kind of strip that out of the data? So those are the challenges that we face. But don't get me wrong, it's a powerful tool set and there are things that we can do, and there's some very low-hanging fruit out there. And it would be remiss if I didn't mention that we have a lot of opportunity to do good with the technology. It's a hammer, right? We can use it to build or we can use it to destroy. It's our choice. But there's all opportunities for social good, social enterprise. And I hope the United Nations start the whole AI for Good initiative. If the UN, one of the most slowest moving, conservative, uninnovative organizations in the world, can embrace AI to improve public services and try to help people on the planet, then I think we can all find opportunities to do so as well. So, want to learn more about AI for Good, I do encourage you to check it out. But there's also a lot of volunteers, the big ecosystem. So if you want to learn about AI and some of the tools that are out there, it's a great way to connect. This is kind of my wine tasting tour of AI. Only covers so much in about 20-25 minutes. I want to make sure there's time for questions. So I'm going to open it up right now for questions, and thank you for your time.